Hello and welcome to This American Girl Reads. My name is Kirsten and today I'm going to be dressing a fraction of my dolls for spring. And I do mean a fraction because when you have 39 dolls, trying to do them all at once is difficult. That would be difficult. That would be a full day endeavor and I just don't have time for that. So I've selected today 7 dolls that I'm going to get changed over into a spring outfit. And then while doing that, I'm also going to answer the dolls and dating tag that Bailey from American Girl Films created, because I thought that would give us something to chat about while I put clothes on my dolls, because while some of you out there might just be, muting and 3 times speeding this video, and that is absolutely fine, I feel like a lot of people probably want some sort of background noise. And so me chatting through the tag was my plan for today. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. I'm going to kick off today's changing with Ms. Caroline. Warning, there will be doll nudity in this video. Caroline is one of my newer dolls, and so I don't have as many photos of her, and one of my goals for this year is to make sure every single one of my dolls has at least 11 photos. I'm very close to that goal, but I haven't actually done any doll photography this year, so hoping that doing this video will springboard me into getting some more doll photos. So yeah, Miss Caroline will be first, and I'm going to be changing her into her work outfit. And while I do that, I will start working on the first question, Velcro, of the dolls and dating tag, which is, how did you and your partner meet? And I think that my partner and I have a really fun story. The shorthand is that my partner and I met doing theater. I have for, 15 years now worked at a local community theater, primarily as a stage manager, but I do sometimes act. I have helped with props. I've assistant directed. Basically if there's a thing out there, I've probably done it. Yes, I've helped build sets. I'm not good at it, but I've helped build sets. I have run the light board. I don't love doing the light board, but I have done it. I have done sound design and I have run the soundboard. Again, not my favorites. My favorite is definitely stage managing. So at the point that my partner and I met, I had stage managed 3 shows back to back, which is a lot. I didn't really have a social life at the time. I was how old was I when we met? 26 when we met. And I had theater friends and I was working on building my social life, but most of my life was go to work, then go to the theater and stage manage, and then come home, write up my rehearsal notes and go to sleep and start it all again the next day. So I had stage managed 3 shows back to back and I was exhausted, and the next show I was supposed to have a break, and I got a call from the director. And she was like, yeah, so I could use some help. I don't have a stage manager for my show, which was the very next show after the one I had just opened. And she was like, would you be willing to stage manage it for me? And I was like, look, I love you and I would love to work with you someday, but no, not right now. I've done too much. I think I was actually in Tech Week when she called me, and I was like, I'm working on my show. I'm too busy. And she's like, okay, that's fair enough. I also have a really small role in the show. It only has 12, 15 lines. But would you be willing to do that? You'd only have to come to Tech Week and maybe 6 rehearsals otherwise. And I was like, okay, yes, that would be fine. It's not as much of a time commitment. Didn't think any more about it. Got to the first rehearsal. I had just opened my own show, got to the first rehearsal. It was my first day off from the show that I was currently stage managing. Was super cranky about having to be there, and discovered she had found a stage manager. It was a new person, new to the community. Showed up to the first rehearsal. It was his birthday, as it turned out, and he shows up wearing a 3-piece suit, and I hated him instantly. Hated him, because I am a person, I live in t-shirts and leggings, and I did not, have time to go get dressed up all fancy when I'm stage managing, and I just knew that people were going to eat this guy up in terms of oh, he dresses so nice. I wish other stage managers would dress that nice. And he was a guy, and I knew that, I was the go-to stage manager for my theater at the time, and I know perfectly well that sometimes when men come into a space and do the exact same thing that a woman does, that they get a lot more credit for it. And that actually did happen, although he feels very bad about it. But yeah, so I hated him. And I was very angry at myself for not taking the stage management gig, because then I could have kept him out of my theater. And then, my show is in its second weekend, and we start having rehearsals for this new show in my theater space with my set going on. This is normal. This is normal in community theater. When a show opens and it's no longer in daily rehearsal, they turn it over to the next show so that they can rehearse in your space. You just have to be really careful. And this new stage manager, this pompous jerk in his 3-piece suit, comes to me the first day of rehearsal in the theater, and he's like, I know you're a really experienced stage manager here, and I know that we're working on your set during your show. Would you be willing to walk me around the theater, show me its quirks, and also show me what I need to be really careful to work around when we're working on your set? Pausing that story. So here's Caroline in her work outfit. I haven't fully tied her bonnet. I won't do that until later, and I'm not going to redo her curls right now. But I love this outfit. It is a shame that it is actually relatively difficult to find for a decent price, because I wish more people could have it, because it's so cute on her. It's very simple. Like, it would be really lovely if these were multiple layers and not just a single dress. But it's so cute. And someday I will own her little cow, Garnet, so that she can go wandering out in fields with her cow and milk her, walk with her little cow. But for now, I just have the outfit, and I think she looks really cute in it. So I'm going to pause here so I can get the next doll, and then I will continue the story of how the person I am now married to was initially my mortal enemy. Next up is going to be Molly here. I have not put her hair back in her braids yet. I'm honestly just really loving Molly with her hair down. I think partially it's the novelty of seeing Molly with her hair down, because most of us try and keep her in her braids because it's so iconic for her. But I actually really love her hair when it's down. I will probably put it up back in her braided pigtails after this, but I won't do it on camera, because me doing hair on camera is just, it is a messy prospect. And I am going to be dressing her in Emily's meat dress. All right, so my partner, my now partner at the time, my mortal enemy stage manager, he was very respectful, and I really did appreciate that. And even though I still was really cranky about him existing in my space, I was able to see that, he was competent. And not only was he competent, he was actually really, really good at stage managing. And stage managing is one of those things where I have a very high bar for it. And I have worked with a range of stage managers when I've acted. And it is very hard to cross my threshold of what I think of as a good stage manager. But he actually did it. So by the time we hit Tech Week, now I have to be at rehearsal all the time. And so I would always come straight from my work to rehearsal, because the theater was like 15 minutes away from where I worked, and it was only 20 minutes away from where I lived, but I just didn't see the point of like going home and then having to backtrack and go back out to the theater. So I would stop, and I would usually get Noodles and Company on the way, and I would go to the theater early, and I would usually be there. I would get there about the same time as him, and I would sit on the edge of the stage while he prepped, while he did the stage prep before rehearsal started. And we would just end up chatting, just about random stuff, nothing super important, no big deal. Which was just a nice way to get to know him a little bit. And, I still didn't, I liked him a little bit at that point, although I had just gotten out of a really bad relationship. I had tried dating again for like the first time in 10 years. It went really badly. I was not looking for someone. I had pretty much given up on dating at that point, because I just didn't see the point. And so like there was a part of me that was like, he's kind of cute, I'll admit it, and he's very competent, and I like competence. I like people who are good at doing things. But at the same time, backstage, I'm hearing a couple of people that I've worked with being like, oh, he's the best stage manager ever. And I'm like, bitch, I am standing right here. Like, you can feel that way, but could you, like, at least wait until I'm out of the room to say it? Like, come on. Come on, rude. So there was also that warring part of me that was like, he's taking my job. This is my only hobby. He can't take my job. So still didn't super like him. Well, then, I love this story. So during one of the shows, one of the performances, Tech Week is done. We're into the performance period, and I'm backstage, and Act 1 has just ended, and all the actors have just come off stage, and we're all in this green room. And you have to understand, I work in a really, really small community theater. And so the green room is basically just this trailer, this really small trailer that's been attached to this it's an old church that's been converted into a theater space. And so really tiny little trailer thing. There's 16 of us crammed into this, 16 was a different show. There's 11 of us crammed into this tiny room. We have like little squares marked out on the floor where we can stand to get changed. And so we're all getting changed for Act 2. And suddenly we feel a lurch. And we're all like, whoa, what was that? And we hear this loud creak. And I realize that the green room, this tiny little trailer, has come detached from the building. And so it is on some wooden legs swaying in the building. And we're all like, oh my God, what do we do? So I go bolting out of the green room because the way the theater is set up, you can't access the main theater area or the booth for where the technicians are and where the stage manager is. You can't access that unless you go outside of the building and around. So I go outside of the building, I go running. I know the code to one of the back door entrances. I enter the code, I shove myself through, scaring the crap out of the concessions person who's standing right there. And I'm like, Steven, his name is Steven. My partner's name is Steven. He won't mind if I tell you his name. I'm like, Steven, the floor has moved. The building is falling down. And he goes bolting. And what he did not realize is he thought I was talking about the set, that the set had come unmoored in some way. And so he goes running through the green room. And I'm like, no, it's the green room. It's the green room. That's the problem. So he stops in the middle. He comes back. And, at this point we're like, okay, what is the plan here? The building, the green room is not safe, but it's not going anywhere, at least at the moment. So we come up with a plan. I get him a bunch of phone numbers of people who work for the theater so that, he can start calling and texting them to figure out a plan. I'm working with the other actors and like, okay, we're going to figure out, we decide we're only going to allow 2 actors in the green room at a time. Because again, it's not going anywhere, but it's not safe. And we have 11 actors that we can't fit in the backstage area. So we're allowed to have 2 at a time. And the way that the rest of the show is laid out, that means like we have to have 5 actors crammed into like the behind the set. But we figure it out and we finish the show. And the next day we have, the technical theater director and a bunch of other people out to like figure out what's going on with the green room. Turns out it was attached to the building with screws that were this long. Again, an entire room, a little trailer attached to a building with screws that are this long. It was great. It's one of my favorite theater disaster stories, and I have many theater disaster stories. But yeah, so after the show ends, we move on our way, and my now partner Steven, he texts me and he's like, "Hey, I'd like to take you out for supper to thank you for all your help during the show and especially for when the green room collapsed." And there was a part of me that was like, is this a date? This might be a date. I'm not going on dates. I don't do dates. I don't even like this guy. He's such a pompous jerk. Who's really nice and kind of cute, but he wears 3-piece suits and he's a really good stage manager who's going to take my job. So I don't even really like this guy. But I'm like, you know what? But I did work really hard on that show. That wasn't supposed to be my show at all. And, he is a nice guy. I wouldn't mind having him as a friend. Fine. So we go out to supper. We stay out until after midnight just chatting. And I go home and I'm like texting my mom. I'm like, shit, I think this was a date. Unbeknownst to me, he's messaging his friends going, I didn't think it was a date, but it may have been a date. Was it a date? And he's asking his friends, like, was this a date? And these are mutual friends at this point. These are theater friends. And then he starts texting me and he's like, would you like to go see this show with me? Would you like to do this with me? And I'm just like, no. No, I'm busy. No, I don't want to, because I'm quietly freaking out because I am so not ready for the idea of a relationship because I just got out of a really bad one and I was done with dating. But he was slightly persistent, not creepy persistent, just, he over the course of a weekend he messaged me a total of 3 times saying, would you like to do this? No. Would you like to do this? No. And the third time I was like, I can't keep saying no because I actually do want this guy at least to be a friend, so I can't make myself seem totally unavailable. And he wanted to go on a walk. And I was like, fine, we can go on a walk. Well, we went on a walk and we ended up holding hands. And then after the walk, we kissed. So that's how I met my partner. And we started dating after that walk and it was really good. And I'm really happy that I met him and got over myself. And by the way, he wore 3-piece suits to rehearsals and to the show because at his workplace at the time, he had to wear 3-piece suits and he just didn't have time to change. So don't judge a book by its cover overly much, I guess. Anyway, here's Molly in Emily's outfit. I really like her in this outfit. I'm never going to own Emily. I don't really have any interest in owning Emily. She's a fine doll, but she's not for me. But I do like several pieces in her collection. And whenever there's a best friend, I will steal the pieces and use them for the other doll. And I just think that this is such a nice little springy outfit that it's ideal for Ms. Molly. And maybe I'm not going to put her hair back up in braids because look at how cute she looks in this outfit with her hair down and all wavy and pretty. I mean, I'm going to brush it because it needs some brushing. But maybe I'm not going to put her hair back up. We'll see. I'm going to pause here to get the next doll. Next up is going to be Ms. Lindsay. Going to get her dressed in a cute little 90s outfit, even though I really need to tighten her limbs. This poor thing. She needs some help, but I just, limb tightening, limb restringing is just so time consuming and so overwhelming feeling that I have not done it yet. Onwards, however. So the next question, that was only question number 1. I really like telling my partners and I a story because I find it very fun. Sorry if you were like, ugh, boring. It's totally fine. You all have your own versions of romantic love stories out there. That just happens to be mine. But the next question is, how did you tell your partner about your hobby? Does your partner support your love of dolls? So when Stephen and I met, I was not a doll collector. So it was very easy. I didn't have to tell him about my hobby because I didn't have it yet. So that made things very simple. I did collect Sherlock Holmes pretty extensively at the time, and there was no really telling him. It was just very obvious that when he walked into my apartment that I collected Sherlock Holmes. So no surprises there. When we were dating and when we would go out on dates, even after we were married, we would sometimes go to the American Girl store at Easton, which was still open at the time. And we would just walk around because I would tell him, I loved American Girl as a kid. This is so nostalgic for me, even though everything is so different now than when I was a kid. But we would occasionally walk around it. But there, again, like I've said in my All My Dolls video, it just didn't occur to me that I was allowed to collect dolls as an adult for a really long time. And then 2020 happened and we were all, trying to find new hobbies and new things for interests. And then when the original 6 were re-released in 2021 was actually when I fell hard back in love with American Girl and finally made the connection that, I could have these dolls too if I want. So the way that went down was my partner and I have a certain amount of money each month that is just ours that we can spend however we want. No questions asked. We don't get a say in what the other person buys. And I told him, I was like, American Girl has released the original 6 dolls. This is super nostalgic for me. This is so my childhood. So I'm going to buy one. And he was like, cool, have fun. So I bought Molly. And then I was like, I might get a few more, just a few. And he was like, okay, that's fine. And at the time, this room is now partially a doll room, but it's also my personal library. Because I'm a big reader. Again, This American Girl reads. And so I was like, okay, well, I now at this point, I think the point where he was like, this is going to be a thing, isn't it? Was like after I had 5 dolls and he's like, this is going to be a thing, isn't it? And at the time I kept all the dolls in our bedroom. I would put them on we have like 3 dressers in our bedroom. And I would like put them on the dressers and they would be watching us and staring at us. And he was fine with it. He's very fine with dolls, but he was also like, if this is going to be a thing, we might want to talk about like the long-term plan here. And I was like, well, I'm never going to have more than 10 dolls. Oops. But you know, over time, you know, he's helped me. He has built all the different shelving in this space for me. He's built the doll. I have an IKEA wardrobe that I use as a dollhouse. He's built that for me. And so he always tells, like, when people ask him about like how he feels about me being a doll collector, he's like, it blindsided me. This was not what I expected when we got married. And to be fair, it's not what I expected either. This really was not something that I was seeking out or, you know, expecting. It wasn't like I was quietly biding my time or like being like, oh, I'm going to become a doll collector when, you know, when we own a house, when we have a big enough house or anything like that. No, it just happened. And he's always been incredibly supportive. I've been very lucky that he has been always very, very supportive. He's just always been like, you know, we need to make sure that we have space for this. And for both of us, it's always you can't get stupid with money. You know, we have a certain amount that we're allowed to spend. We can sometimes take out like little advances if we definitely have money. Like if we didn't have money, we could not take out an advance. So we're very careful in that way. But again, like I said, he has built most of the spaces in my doll room. I have a secondary space where I keep some other items. That's our guest bedroom. And he's very supportive of me having the guest bedroom space to use as well. So long as it's, you know, something that can be tucked away so that when we do have guests, they're not being bombarded by doll stuff, because not all people are comfortable with dolls. And they shouldn't have to stare at dolls if they're not, you know, comfortable with that kind of thing. So yeah, I would say that he's incredibly supportive. He tries really hard. I mean, it's really nice too, because he is a Lego collector. He loves Legos. And we have made a point of, while I have, you know, 2 spaces for doll stuff to go, we have a finished attic, which is a really nice space. And we've made that into a Lego display area. So he can display his Legos there and store the ones that he hasn't put together yet up there. And then he has a personal home office that he can also put his Legos in. And then, you know, before we have 3 cats right now, all of whom are 2 or younger. And so they're very active and curious. And so we used to also just have Legos all throughout our house. So like, I view Lego as art. I view dolls as art. And so we like to have it throughout our house as much as possible for people to take a look at and enjoy. Legos more so than dolls, just because, again, some people are kind of creeped out by dolls. And I do try and respect that by not shoving it in their face if they don't want it. So here is Lindsay, my little chaos gremlin. I like to think that whenever the weather gets nice out, she immediately is pulling on shorts and t-shirts. And this was an attempt of her mom to like pull her back in and be like, okay, it is still too cold to be wearing a t-shirt with your shortalls. So you need to at least wear a turtleneck. So this is Lindsay and her mom's compromise for what is appropriate spring wear. I think she looks very cute in this. I originally was going to have her in a different shirt, but I decided that I wanted to do a turtleneck underneath instead. I thought it was very cute. So that's Lindsay. Hold for the next doll, please. Next up is going to be Marisol, and I will be putting her, hopefully, this is going to be an experiment. I'm going to put her in this with a little bit of a twist because of the style that I've given my Marisol personally. All right, the next question is... Let me get the Velcro open. The next question, how much does your partner know about your hobby? Can they name your dolls or characters? On average, I personally feel like my partner actually has a fairly decent knowledge of my hobby. He does not care about dolls. Like, it's not like this is ever going to become a hobby that he shares with me. But he knows more than he thinks he knows. He's just not confident in his knowledge. And frankly, I don't think he's trying to necessarily learn. That's just, why would he? I don't expect him to. So I would say he's more knowledgeable than he thinks he is. I will sometimes ask him for an opinion about like, oh, should I buy this or this? And he'll be like, well, based on your space constraints and what kind of photos you like to take, I might recommend, you get this instead. And that's the kind of feedback that I appreciate. Is sometimes I need an objective eye and someone who knows what my general goals are, even if he doesn't necessarily know like how to implement those. And so he's pretty knowledgeable on that. And then when it comes to my dolls' names and their characters, again, he's not confident. Whenever I ask him to like go get me a specific doll, he's very deer in the headlights of, oh no, please, I'm gonna make a mistake. But usually if I like say, oh, I want you to go get me Carnes, you'll remember her. She likes dinosaurs and she's a 112. She has like the round curly hair. He can usually get in the ballpark, and he gets it right, I would say 85% of the time. I have 39 dolls, and when I have a partner who doesn't care about dolls, and is not a personal collector himself of dolls, like him being able to get it right 85% of the time is actually really impressive, I think. And so he really does try. And, the other thing the reason he knows our hobby is I don't drive a lot. I'm a very nervous driver, and so I try not to drive, and I can't drive on the freeway at all. And so sometimes when it comes to getting to places, getting to fellow hobbyists' houses or to meetups, I need help going there. And so he ends up learning a lot because he'll be present in some of these spaces with other collectors, and he just kind of listens and absorbs and picks up on things. We hosted a meetup last year at a park. We rented a pavilion for a bunch of the local collectors, and he ended up being the grill master the entire time. And in the process, he ended up learning some stuff about the difference between our generation, my life as an American girl, which, again, does he necessarily need or even want that knowledge? Probably not, but it means that when we're in a space where I'm looking to purchase things or add things to my collection in some way, he can be like, oh, I saw this thing that you might like. It's not American Girl. It's, I think, maybe our generation or something, but, you might like it anyway. And again, just as an objective third eye, as a second set of hands, I think he's very, very good about that sort of thing. And so I think that he's more knowledgeable than he thinks he is. So for Marisol's outfit, I have put her in this dress. It does fit her. It is, I would actually say it's not, given that she's a slightly older doll, she's not PC pudgy, but she's a slightly older doll. This actually fits pretty well, especially because, again, Marisol, I don't know if it's all Marisol's or if it's just a few, but she has a really long torso. She's a lot taller than most of my other dolls. And like, you can see like the neck joint thing is honestly, clock, hold please. Someday I will remember to maybe move that clock out of here before I begin filming, and today was not that day. Anyway, so I was saying, Marisol has a longer torso, and you can kind of see like even here where her head meets her body, like it's just shaped a little differently. Like I think I've heard a couple of people sometimes describe their dolls' bodies, like the way they're stuffed, like as like a linebacker, and I kind of feel like Marisol has that too, because she's like really stuffed up here and then a little narrower down here. I don't care. I love her, and this does actually fit her. And then the way that I like to dress my Marisol is that I like to give her kind of like a punk princess aesthetic. And so I paired her with the fishnet stockings from the Bat Halloween costume. And then the I don't remember what these shoes are called, but I believe they're still available at AG. And so they're like platform loafers with chains and like a hot pink sole. Some people paint them. I actually like to keep it hot pink because of Marisol and her general like aesthetic in my collection. So it's a little weird. I'm not a fashionista. I'm not good at dressing stuff and fashion. I wear a t-shirt and leggings basically every day. But I think I actually kind of like how this came together. Oh, and I also gave her the bracelet from the Pink Stardust holiday doll. which is very weird because it's, you know, it's a fairly heavy bracelet, and it like keeps twisting so that the chain is up top. So that's a fun fact about the bracelet. I think she looks really cute though. I'm actually quite happy with how this outfit turned out. And I think I finished answering that question too. So we will move on to the next doll and the next question. Next up, I'm going to be dressing Viola, my number 26. Viola, all my dolls that I consider part of like my personal World by Us extension line, they all have, and they're mostly Truly Me's, and then like a custom and a Disney doll. But those, I consider them all part of an extension of the World by Us line. And all of them have like a general aesthetic that I try and stick with. I'm not always perfect at it because, again, I'm not a fashionista. I don't understand fashion. Fashion makes no sense to me. Putting together cute outfits is hard. But Viola's is kind of like a dark academia vibe. And by that, all I mean is she kind of dresses slightly nerdy, a little old-fashioned at times, and she tends to like darker colors, more neutral colors, and things along those lines. However, it is spring, and Viola is a character who does care on some level about fashion, and so she does recognize that spring is not necessarily, you know, a time of dark colors, and her outfit that I've chosen for her, which I actually won't show off in advance because it's a combo of pieces. It's not like it's Caroline's work dress or Emily's meet dress or anything like that. It's a combination of a couple of pieces. So we're going to get Viola dressed while answering the question of, have you ever been discouraged from collecting in the past? Now, I assume that given this is the dolls and dating tag, that on some level that might mean like from former partners. But again, I didn't start collecting until I was in my 30s and was married at that point. I only ever had 2 partners before my married partner, one of which, again, ended very badly, only dated for 2 weeks. And then the other one was my high school boyfriend, and, you know, young puppy love, great, but also like that was never going to be a long-term relationship. It was my high school partner. Great for people for whom that worked out, but I went into dating my high school boyfriend knowing that it was not going to be a forever thing, because I'm not a very romantic person. From previous partners, no, I've never been discouraged from collecting. And I would say if we're sticking with the word collecting, then no, I've never been discouraged from anyone for collecting. But I will say, as a girl child growing up in the 90s with a circle of adults around me who were very, very feminist, and I am a feminist, so this is not like a slam on feminism, but because of the time of the 90s, and, you know, there was a certain understanding of what being a feminist meant and things like that, I did get a lot of vibes from people when I was a kid that playing with dolls was maybe not going to be something that I should continue to pursue. There's, of course, the usual, you know, once you hit a certain age, you shouldn't play with toys anymore because, you know, now it's not cool and you should be focusing on, like, other things. From my peers, you know, there was always that. But there was also just, like, a lot of vibe of, like, I was very much, I wouldn't say I was a tomboy because I never liked sports, but I was outside a lot. I played in the dirt, and I got, you know, messy, and I played a lot of imagination games. I was an only child too, so I also played a lot by myself outside doing random things. And there was just this kind of expectation from the parents of my friends and stuff that, oh, well, Kirsten, you know, she's not a girly girl, and therefore she doesn't play with dolls. And I can't say that it was ever necessarily like stated as baldly as that, but there was definitely just a very strong vibe of, well, Kirsten's not a girly girl. You know, she's a strong, independent woman, a strong, independent girl who, you know, is, you know, the embodiment of what, you know, young girlhood should look like. And yeah, I don't think that's anyone's fault. I do not fault anybody in my life for that. And I'm very grateful for a lot of those attitudes, in all honesty, because it meant that I didn't fall into a lot of traps that young girls often face. But it also meant that I always had a very strong understanding that playing with dolls, playing with, like My Littlest Pet Shop and all these other things, to a certain point, at a certain point, was no longer going to be an acceptable thing. And so even at a young age, I often would play dolls by myself when there was no one around. I had my own bedroom, only child. And so I would play with my dolls at like midnight when I was certain people were asleep and that it wasn't going to be an issue. And when my peers were growing out of their doll houses and their Barbies and were getting rid of them, I'd be like, can I have it? And I would take them and I would hide them and I would keep them. I played with dolls well into high school. But if you asked any of my peers' parents, I stopped playing with dolls in elementary school. And it's so funny because, of course, my mom is still friends with a lot of my peers, their parents. She's still friends with them, and I consider many of them dear friends myself. And they are so confused by my doll collecting. They're like, but Kirsten never played with dolls. She's never been this way. And I'm like, I have always been this way. I just didn't show it to you because I kind of knew that you didn't want it from me. I was not, I had friends growing up who were very, they dreamed of their wedding day. They planned for when they were going to be married with a husband. And so they were encouraged to play with dolls. That was very normal for them. And like one of my friend's parents, who's very confused by the fact that I'm a doll collector, had one of those daughters, and she was always encouraged to play with dolls. And it was just because of my general personality, there was just a sense that I always got from adults that playing with dolls was acceptable up to a point. But at that point, once I crossed that point, it was no longer a thing that I should be doing because of the type of girl child I was. And again, they're all doing their best. None of them were ever shaming me. It was just kind of this unspoken thing that I understood, that it was not acceptable for me. And so I kept playing with dolls quietly and secretly. And it was really only when I went to college and I had to be very thoughtful about what I took with me because I went to college out of state, that I stopped playing with dolls in any real way. I don't remember when Monster High was coming out originally. I think it was when I was in college, maybe late high school, early college. And I do know that I pined over those dolls. I wanted them so bad. But I also, while I was still secretly playing with my dolls, I was not purchasing new dolls. And so collecting was never discouraged because collecting just wasn't a thing. So with that being said, let me show you if I can finish one final piece that I couldn't do. It'll work for the second. I'll fix it later. So this is what I have Ms. Viola in. This is a sweater from the Ireland travel outfit, a nice little cardigan, but then the dress is by Silly Monkey Doll Stuff, who is one of my absolute favorite Etsy creators. I think that he does phenomenal work. I actually got this in I got this in a mystery bag that I purchased, which was so great because this is just such a nice, versatile little sundress. And then I have her in some nice woolly socks and some hiking boots, which is hilarious because Viola, she's a Girl Scout, and so she does like the minimum requirements to get Girl Scout badges for the outdoors, but she's not a big outdoorsy person. She's not a hiker. She does rollerblade and roller skate, and that's her outdoors stuff, but she's hiking boots. These are fashion hiking boots when they're on Viola. They are not for hiking. But so yeah, this is my spring look for Viola. Again, dark academia in the spring means that Viola thinks there still needs to be a nice pop of color, but otherwise she's bringing the neutrals. She is bringing, the schoolgirl kind of vibe to it. So that's Viola. Let me grab the next doll and I will then answer the next question. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and dress Ramona, my number 54. If you've watched and remember my Celine doll show haul, you will definitely know exactly what I'm going to put her in because I've been dreaming of this moment for quite a while. So let me go ahead and get working on her while I also answer the next... before I answer the next question, Ramona's general aesthetic. Ramona is 9 years old in my collection. Yeah, she's 9. And she's still a little girly and a little young. So she kind of wears whatever her mom tells her to wear, because this is, okay, I need to go on a rant for a minute. I'm sorry, this is not related to the dolls and dating tag, but I have to say this because it always drives me up a wall, and it's such a weird thing to like be twitchy about. But there are times, especially for the historicals, where people will point to an outfit in a collection and be like, you know, so and so wouldn't even wear this. This is, you know, they're not this girly, or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, these are 9 and 10-year-old girls, and I don't know, I grew up in the 90s, and there was still at that point, maybe not, there's not so much at this point for children, but when I was growing up, at least, I didn't get to pick a lot of my clothes, okay? Like, I had a certain amount of autonomy in the sense of my mom would certainly ask my opinion about some things, but I did not pick out my own clothes. I picked out my outfit for the day in some cases, like if special occasions, usually my mom would be like, here's what you're going to wear. And I'd be like, okay, this is what I'm going to wear. And then I would whine about it. But when you were a certain age, in many, many cases, in a lot of places, you didn't necessarily pick out your own clothes all the time. You might express preferences, and you might be unhappy about, you know, and verbally express your unhappiness about having to wear certain clothes, but you also were just expected to shut up and wear it. Kit and Samantha get this all the time where they're like, well, you know, Samantha was climbing trees. She would never wear this. And especially for Samantha, do you think Grand Mary cares what Samantha's opinions are? She is a little girl in Edwardian America. She is expected to wear what Grand Mary tells her to wear. It bugs me. It bugs me. Like, you don't have to like it. There's a number of Samantha outfits I would never put my Samantha in because I don't like them. But I also sit there and go, yeah, no, Samantha doesn't really get a ton of choice about what she wears because Grand Mary picks out her clothes and works with a seamstress, you know, works with Jessie to have Jessie, sew her clothes. And Samantha doesn't get an opinion in this case. Children are meant to be seen and not heard in Samantha's era, and therefore she wouldn't be picking out her own clothes. Rant over, Ramona's mom picks out a lot of her clothes. And so Ramona has not yet necessarily developed her own style or taste yet. Moving on. Sorry for the digression. Just bugs me. All right, the next question is, do you worry about dating as a doll collector? Now, I am very happily married. Very, very happily married. And so, no, I don't worry about dating as a doll collector at all. Because that's not something that I have to worry about. I've done my part of dating. I am married. I don't have to worry about the dating scene anymore. That being said, you know, were the worst to happen, if my partner, I don't have a lot of wood to knock on, so I'm not going to say that phrase out loud, but let's just say my partner was no longer part of my life for unfortunate reasons. Were that to happen and I was faced with, you know, potentially needing to date again, I can first of all say I probably wouldn't. I never dated in a normal way when I was younger, and I hated the concept of dating, and frankly, these days it seems even worse. I talk to people who are not married or not partnered, and I work at a university with young people, and hearing about how the struggles for them to find someone, it seems like online dating is the thing these days in a lot of cases, and no, I'm not doing that. No. Absolutely not. That will not be something that ever happens. So I don't worry about it, but if I were in a situation where I needed to date, where I was like looking at the dating scene again, and I had decided that I was gonna go ahead and try dating and trying to find another partner, no, I don't worry about it. I'm 36. I know who I am, and if someone doesn't take me as who I am, then they shouldn't be my partner. Like, that's how it is, you know? I don't want to be connected to, you know, partnered with someone who is uncomfortable with or disgusted by or not supportive in some way of the things that I love. Now, you know, support can mean a lot of different things. You know, my partner is incredibly supportive. He, you know, takes me where I want to go. He helps me meet up with friends. He has an eye for my collection. He's also a photographer, and so he's done a lot to try and help me learn how to be a better photographer, and has given me, like, we go sometimes on doll photography dates where, he'll bring his own camera to do his own photography, but he'll also like give me some pointers about what I'm, how I want to accomplish something in a photo. So he's very, very supportive, but support doesn't need to look like that. Support can just be staying out of my way and letting me do my thing. And so that is something that I would always look for in another partner, regardless, whether it's, doll collecting or Sherlock Holmes collecting or, any my books. I'm a huge reader. I have tons of books. Whatever it was, I would expect my partner to support that. And I don't think anyone should settle for less than that. So no, I don't worry about the dating scene because God willing, that's not going to be something I ever have to deal with again. And probably wouldn't, even if the worst were to happen. But also, I'm just very comfortable with who I am, and I expect someone else to be okay with who I am too, if I'm looking to be a partner to them. So here is Ramona, wearing the everyday play jumper that I've wanted to put her in since I got it. Again, I think 54 was the catalog model for this outfit back in the day. And so that's probably part of what drove me to want to put her in this. And I don't care that that's the case because AG knew what they were doing when they put her in this outfit. Because look at how cute she is. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. The cute little boots. Ugh. She's adorable. And I added this little necklace. This just came randomly with something that I bought off eBay. I have no idea if it's AG, off-brand, some random charm. It's just like this little girl fairy thing. And I just felt that was like very Ramona. Because again, she's 9 years old. She's very young. She hasn't really developed her own taste. And I just feel like she would totally be like, oh, that's cute. I want to wear it. And I like sometimes pulling pieces, outfits together with a piece of jewelry. And I don't have a ton of jewelry. So this is the only piece that when I was looking through my jewelry that I was like, yeah, no, Ramona would wear that. All the other stuff is a little more mature than she would necessarily wear. So that's Ramona in the everyday play jumper. Final doll, final question. Final doll is Miri. She's my CYO. She has the Just face mold, green eyes, freckles, the red pixie cut. Miri is my stage manager doll because, of course, I have a stage manager doll, being that I myself am a stage manager. And her aesthetic is she only wears she mostly wears black. Or occasionally like neutrals, black, white, some browns, gray. She'll wear that, but mostly she wears black, sometimes with a pop of color. And she tends to favor kind of, think Audrey Hepburn kind of styles. She really likes classic feminine looks. The only time she ever really dresses down is for set builds, and then she'll pull out overalls and a shirt that she doesn't mind getting ripped up and dirty. And she will sometimes wear, slightly less fancy clothes when she's actively stage managing. But I actually kind of gave her my partner's aesthetic when he's stage managing, because even though he no longer works a job where he needs to wear 3-piece suits, he does tend to pull them out for stage managing because he does enjoy the professional look. I eye roll at it when I'm stage managing. I'm like black leggings, boots, and a black t-shirt because I need to be able to move. But we all have our own thing, and so I actually gave Miri more of my partner's stage management aesthetic of always looking very nice. So I'm going to start working on getting her dressed. And then the final question for the doll and dating tag is, what advice would you give a single or a new doll collector? And again, I'm going to assume that this is probably related to, dating stuff and things along those lines, because there's lots of advice I could give to a new collector, like, don't go wild. we all need to hear it, and we never hear it until it's too late. But when it comes to dating and you're a doll collector, if you're single, I mean, I think that, the other folks who've done this tag, Blaine and Bailey and Christy, Diz Blaine, American Girl films and AG Takes Over, I think they've all largely said the same thing, which is that you got to be you. And, you know, doll collecting, if that's part of who you are, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. And I would just echo that. Like, I don't think that there's anything better that can be said or different that can be said, because when it comes to collecting, if that's important to you, if something's important to you, you can't, you know, hide that from your partner. You shouldn't be feeling ashamed about that. It's who you are. And if you're going to be partnered with someone, they need to respect who you are. And you shouldn't settle for less than that. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to bring a doll with you on a first date to be like, and this is who I am, take it or leave it. You know, you can always like get to know them a little bit first before that sort of thing happens. But if your partner is uncomfortable with dolls, it's worth asking why. Like, again, some people are uncomfortable with dolls because they just find them a little bit creepy. And there might be compromises that you can find. Like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be, you love my dolls or we're done. It can be, I need you to respect that I like dolls and I need to have dolls in my life, but you don't have to be invested in this hobby in the same way that I am. So, you know, I have friends in my life who come over on a regular basis who are freaked out by dolls. Like, they find them creepy. And so I have my own doll space, and I don't invite them into that space because I try and respect their own fears as well, because it is a fear. It's not, I think dolls are juvenile or whatever. It's, they genuinely find them creepy. Thank you, Chucky. You have done so much work for so many people out there in the world. So you got to respect that. Like, if you're dating someone and they're genuinely just kind of freaked out by dolls, but they respect your dolls and they respect that you love dolls, there's compromises to be found, whatever that may look like. And the compromise doesn't have to be you put your dolls away and they never come out again, but it might be that you have a space that's dedicated to them, that your partner knows not to go into them. Or, you know, if you're in a much smaller space, that, you know, maybe you don't buy every single doll that you want, but you really have to focus your collection so that your partner doesn't have to be confronted with dolls all the time. And hopefully they're doing the same for you, and they should be. Like, if there's something that really freaks you out and bothers you, that they're respecting that and making sure that's not in your face all the time either. It's just, communication is key, and you got to be able to talk to your partner and make sure that they're sorry, there was a bird. Make sure that they're okay with what you're doing, and you got to make sure that you're okay with what they're doing. You know, if like I said, my partner loves Legos. I can't see why I would be freaked out by Legos, but what I could see is if his Legos were taking up a ton, like when they're still in the boxes, if they were taking up a ton of space. Or, this is a very real thing as a family with cats, if he was, you know, pouring out a bag and then walking away, and then the cats were batting the Legos onto the ground where I could step on them. That would be a problem. Stepping on a Lego is a whole meme for a reason. But that's just a communication thing. Like, sitting down with your partner and being like, I don't mind that you leave your Legos out, but we got to find a way that they don't get knocked on the floor where I can step on them, whether that's closing the door or putting them into some sort of receptacle so that they're like all in one place. Or if, you know, you don't just pour them out and walk away, you only pour them out when you're getting ready to work on them. You know, communication is just so important in any relationship, and you've got to be able to have sometimes tough conversations where you express that you're uncomfortable or unhappy with something. And you also have to be okay with them having those conversations with you. So Miri here is dressed in a nice little dress outfit here that has like some rose as in R-O-S-E, rose buttons here with a matching rose bracelet. It has like a little peplum here in the front, black tights, and some simple Mary Jane shoes. And she's also wearing the same earrings as before. This outfit is from a local seamstress. I don't know who they are. I don't believe they're on Etsy. I picked up this outfit at a local Ohio art store where they put out stuff that different Ohio artists have made, and there's one or two American Girl artists who sell at that store, and so I sometimes pick up outfits there. A lot of the times they're a little too young for me, or not an outfit that's not of big interest to me, but every now and then there's an outfit where I'm like, yes, my doll would absolutely wear this, and this was Miri's. So she's going to go into the spring wearing this. All right, so that is the 7 dolls that I dressed for the spring for right now. I found that when I had like 1 to 10 dolls, I would dress all of them all at once. And then once I had, more than 10, I would sometimes do them in 2 shifts. And now that I have 39 dolls, what I've found is my best method is, rather than being like, I'm going to dress my dolls for whatever, although I do have a few of those, I will switch dolls over for spring. Anytime there's a holiday, I do try and get a certain number of them dressed for that. But for the most part, what I've found useful now is that I dress my dolls when I know a photo that I want to take of them. So I found that sometimes I would turn around, I would dress all my dolls, it would take hours, I'd get them all done, and then in the time that it took to take photos, I wouldn't end up taking photos of some of those dolls in the outfits I had just put them in. And I like having a photo record of my dolls, of, in an outfit, doing a thing out there in the world. And I didn't like that I was sometimes switching a doll into a new outfit 2 or 3 times before I would take a single photo of them, just because of the sheer number of dolls I have. And so now I keep track of how many photos each of my dolls has, and how recent they all are, and then I try and rotate through. And so I will know, like, okay, I haven't taken a photo of so-and-so in a while, so I want to prioritize that. What kind of photo do I want to take of them? And then I will change them in order to go take that photo. And that way I have fewer dolls who, it still happens where I change a doll and then I change them into something else and don't take a photo of them in whatever they were in before. But now I have a better method of making sure that dolls are getting photos taken and they're not, getting changed and then neglected on the shelf for a really long time. So that's how I tend to do photography stuff, is focusing, how I do doll dressing stuff is focusing on what sort of photos I want to take and then getting the relevant dolls changed over into those outfits. But it was fun to get, 7 of my dolls switched over for spring so that they're just ready to go and I can now go take some photos. And maybe I'll throw in some photos at the end here. I haven't actually done any editing yet for videos that include photos at some point, so it would be a new thing to try. I'd also need to get 7 dolls out to go get photos, and that's also just a lot of work. Especially because I've moved into one of my busy periods of work and I'm working 50 hours a week minimum. So I will try and get these photos, but at the very least, I will make sure that there's some sort of thumbnail photo with capturing a look. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed just sitting and chatting with you today, and I know this will be a longer video because of that, but I do hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or thoughts about any of the outfits that I created, go ahead and pop them into the comments. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Bye!